We have our next speaker with us, Mr. Hamid Rashid, founder of Fintech, and speaking on today's topic of Islamic Fintech. Over to you, Mr. Hamid.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hamid Rashid. I'm the founder of Fintech, currently based out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Fintech is a fintech company that specializes in blockchain solutions for Islamic social finance. And we are well known globally for our Awqaf or the Waqf blockchain solution called the Waqf chain. I'll be sharing with you today on the state of Islamic fintech industry and how it has evolved in the last 5 years and what is the outlook for it in the next 2-3 years. Now, pandemic, the COVID pandemic was definitely a blessing in disguise for the Islamic fintech space. In 2020, there was a survey done by Islamic Finance Network, a research organization based out of Kuala Lumpur. And they found that, with the pandemic, new rules were created. We couldn't operate the way we used to operate before, right? And those new rules were basically social distancing. And the way we lead our life is through virtual presence, through ICT connectivity, and also, getting all our either financial or any other services done online. So these new rules, forced the users as well as the innovators and the industry into changing their behavior. So that is what we call today the new norm. The new norm has become that every service, you can acquire it online. And under the new norm, especially for the financial industry, they were promoting for the last 5 years digitization. And for the first time in 2020, because of COVID, that digitization was put under the litmus test. And you cannot believe it, a lot of banks and established financial institutions failed, that their systems, right, were not up to date, and they were not able to grasp the attention of users. So this is where fintech, got the propulsion and acceleration that innovators, founders were able to create new revolutionary applications to fill those gaps. Now, fintech has definitely given us a promise of growth. And if we compare Islamic fintech with the conventional fintech, which has existed much longer, we can see what the heights could be. And, just like fintech are here to service, compete, and create innovation in the financial services industry and space. Islamic fintech, of course, is exactly the same thing, but with Sharia compliance. So in this survey done by IFN, right, nearly 142 founders and CEOs were interviewed last year during the pandemic. And, certain daunting findings came out. To share with you some of those findings, right? What are the top 5 areas within the Islamic fintech that are, growing the fastest? So P2P, which is peer-to-peer, financing, as well as crowdfunding, was seen as the most feasible and viable area within the Islamic fintech that's growing. Payments and remittance was the other area, okay? And then it goes on to personal financing like wealth management, loans, lending, and savings. Challenger banks is one area that it started, getting a lot of limelight last year, and then this year it has started maturing, where the Malaysian Central Bank, Bank Negara, is already evaluating now proposals on issuing digital banking licenses to fintechs. So this is a completely new area, that was never heard of before, that just evolved in the last 12 months. And again, the challenges that, were highlighted because of this pandemic. Regulatory framework for the first time now is getting hammered because regulators were very stringent, were kind of looking at, cornering and looking at the squares. But for the first time, they have to accommodate fintechs, where fintechs, because of the innovation, are looking at sandboxes, right, to try out the ideas They're also looking at limited licenses to try out the ideas and systems. The other area that really, has magnified is the lack of capital for Islamic fintechs. So I will reflect on this a little bit more in the subsequent slides, but this was one area that was highlighted in the surveys. And then the last thing was the literacy and awareness of the community, the Islamic community globally, that they were not very well versed in using of mobile apps or the systems to do their financial services, right? So literacy was another key area. Now, based on the survey, it was found that Southeast Asia is the fastest growing region in Islamic fintech, and the countries that actually are propelling this, of course, Malaysia. But surprisingly, as a non-OIC country, UK is listed as #2 fastest growing Islamic fintech region. And of course, third region is United Arab Emirates. And later on, we'll look at the top 20 countries that are performing in the Islamic fintech. Now, what the research institutes, the fintech associations globally are doing is to look at the fintech players in this space of Islamic fintech and to club them into different categories, right, and to prepare certain reports. Now, they used a framework, and most of the research institutes came out with very similar frameworks. So there were a lot of common areas. So I have taken this framework to share with you because this is the latest framework released by Dinar Standards and UK-based research organization. And it has a lot of common, features that was subsequently developed. And this framework came out in January of this year. Now, if you have to read this framework, what this framework actually, shows that to club the fintechs that are out there, you're looking at, a few things. One is the type of customers or end users that this fintech or this solution is addressing, okay? And on the right-hand side, you'll see what type of technology that this fintech is using as the innovative, foundation to develop the solution. So you have heard a lot about blockchain and crypto, tokenization, AI, and IoT. Now, based on the utilization of the technology, the innovation is created. And then the innovation is applied in a very specific segment of the BFSI, banking and financial services industry, right? And then in the body of it, you can see we took very kind of a direct approach to club the fintechs into 3 segments, which are give and protect segment, where we look at Islamic social finance, like solutions addressing wakaf, zakat, and sadaqah. And then also for protect, which is the insurance, insurtech, or the takaful tech. Now the new word has been coined, takaful tech. And in the middle, we were looking at savings and investment type of solutions. So very much like wealth management tools, saving tools, asset management fintechs. So that was a category there. And then deposit and lending was another area. So challenger banks definitely fell into that. The open banking frameworks, right, that have been developing in the last 2 years, mortgage solutions, and personal finance and student finance. These are the lending type of Islamic lending type of solutions. And right at the bottom there was the financing solutions. Now, in the financing solutions were the most segments that came up. #1 segment, performing segment in overall, was the fundraising segment, where we looked at peer-to-peer and also crowdfunding. So just if I give you a rough estimate of in Malaysia, the number of crowdfunding licenses that have been issued by the Securities Commission is already in the last 2 years is already about 8 licenses have been issued. And this is the fastest. And this is just only in Malaysia. The same thing is happening in Emirates. The same thing is happening in Saudi Arabia and Indonesia now. Payment segment is another, where we're looking at online payments, remittances, and Forex exchanges. Capital market type of solutions, right? Investment and trading of Sukuk or Sukuk issuance platform. Digital asset is a new category, which kind of started getting a lot of limelight since last year. And digital assets, is for the first time being taken very seriously, especially for the issuance of sukuk as a digital asset, as well as conversion of gold dinar standards as a digital asset. So these, for those two reasons, I see that a digital asset has suddenly kind of become a very big area within the fintech space. And lastly is the alternative financing, where we're looking at SME or trade financing, and there are a lot of Islamic finance and lending, concept like murabaha and many other concepts that are now getting converted into fintech solution. And right at the bottom is the bedrock, of this whole innovation is the operation of those fintechs, where the maturity of the fintechs is evaluated based on the utilization of IT, right? Internal IT, of course, their HR and their corporate services, legal framework, and the compliance framework. And also in terms of how those fintechs are creating a governance framework in their operation. Because a lot of fintechs started off being unregulated and are going towards regulation by applying licenses and so many other governance frameworks that they're putting in place. So if I use this framework and I put in all those Islamic fintechs around the world into the framework, this is what comes out, right? So outcome of this survey and the research was that a topology of global Islamic fintech was created. And this is the most latest, I think is as of yesterday, this slide came out, that 255 Islamic fintechs have been registered, recognized in operations globally. And each of those fintechs are categorized and subcategorized, you can see in different segments, right? Whether it is in cryptocurrency and blockchain, whether it is into lending or investments or crowdfunding, they have been segmented, right? And this came out from the Islamic Finance Network research organization. If we break this and try to analyze and understand, right, what's happening in those 255 Islamic fintechs, basically what's happening is that they have been broken up into subsections or sub categories, and they're addressing different nature of businesses, right, within the Islamic financial services industry. Now, maybe I don't need to address everything, but maybe let's address the top 3 or top 5 of them. So here you can see the top industry or the segment within the Islamic financial services industry is basically the capital markets. Sorry if I got that wrong. Is in the crowdfunding space, right? So nearly 44 of those organizations out of the 255 are playing within the crowdfunding space. The second space is in the deposits and lending. And in the lending, you're seeing that there are a lot of now lending type of products that are coming out, Islamic lending type of products that are coming out from fintechs, whether it is for supply chain, invoice financing, and even personal loan. And the latest phenomena around the world is buy now, pay later, right? So buy now, pay later concept is hardly 1 year old, but nearly, you can see 40 over organizations globally, right, are working in this space alone. Okay, and the third area, the largest area, is in wealth management. So where you're looking at robo-advisory, you're looking at saving accounts, as well as Sharia investment accounts, using fintech, and there are quite a number of now very established players that are already now licensed in this space. Now, overall, if you see what is driving this, right? So it is the ecosystem enabler. And the ecosystem enablers, right, determine the maturity of the regulators and also the fintechs in each of those countries and regions. So, those ecosystem enablers can be, looked into as advisory or the corporate services, just like looking at the legal framework, the Sharia framework in each of the country, and also the consulting frameworks that exist in each of those countries. Now, most of these Islamic fintech players are coming from OIC countries. So nearly 64, if I recall correctly, nearly 64 countries, form the OIC. But I will discuss more that there are quite a number of Islamic fintechs coming out of non-OIC countries as well, and are maturing quite well in those countries and are getting regulated by those non-OIC country regulators as well. Now, for fintechs to start off, there's always a technology and industry collaboration, where financial institutions are collaborating with fintechs to pilot or to sandbox a specific solution, and then it goes out. So we are seeing more and more such kind of industry, innovation collaborations in Malaysia, Singapore, Emirates, in Qatar, where certain banks, Islamic banks, are partnering with fintechs to pilot their solutions. And if the solutions work out, then the fintech takes on a smaller segment of the business from the established financial institution. The other area that is building up, the bedrock, of the fintechs is the technology itself, because of course, fintech, so the technology piece has to be very strong. And we are seeing more and more inclusion of technologies like business intelligence, more and more of blockchain, so tokenization, smart contracts coming out. And most recently, I'm also seeing now NFTs playing a very big role, especially in Awqaf, because Waqf is one area where the asset is unique, and asset is, cannot be replaced. That's the whole definition of Awqaf. So a lot of NFTs are now coming out on Awqaf related asset purely for crowdfunding purposes to raise capital, and then the capital is getting deployed into the development of Awqaf. So blockchain solutions, and of course AI, where we are seeing that robo-advisory type of solutions, right? And advisory type of solutions are making use of AI technology, whether it is chat-based or voice-based, but a lot of those kind of solutions are coming out. Now, what the outlook of the industry is, right, that you can see happening in the next 2 years, right? As of 2020, the value that was created by Islamic fintechs alone in the OIC countries was roughly around $49 billion worth of value that was created. Now, based on the research, right, what it is showing on the growth rate, right, between 2017 till 2020 and then onwards, is basically you're looking at a year-over-year growth rate of nearly 21% in the Islamic fintech space. So this industry is going to go to about $128 billion by 2025. That's just another 4 years away. So the acceleration because of COVID, right, and the consumer behavior change has accelerated in a space that was kind of organically growing to basically it has become viral today. The top 20 countries, right, that are recognized, right, in contribution towards Islamic fintech, of course, not discounting all the other OIC countries, right? So here is the ranking in terms of the number of Islamic fintechs registered in those countries and are fully operational. Of course, the top country today is Malaysia, followed by Saudi Arabia, Emirates. And in the top 10 itself, you can see that there is one non-Islamic country, which is United Kingdom. So England, right, because of, I guess, the Islamic, the size of the Islamic community and also the motivations of the Islamic community there, quite a number of Islamic fintechs are registered out of the UK and are operational out of the UK. And if you look at the numbers from number 11 to the 20th, there are quite a number of non-OIC countries that are contributing within the Islamic fintech. So Singapore, United States, Hong Kong, and Canada. So there quite a number of fintechs came out of those countries. Now, one of the reasons, right, that the Islamic fintech industry is growing so fast is because in the last 2 years, and especially in the last 1 year, there have been Islamic fintech hubs that are created. And of course, one of the recognized Islamic fintech hub is the Qatar Islamic fintech hub that's promoting Islamic finance very widely all over the world. So in terms of the hubs here today, right, if you look at the Saudi Arabia hub is the largest, right? And followed by, of course, Iran, and then Emirates and Malaysia. But if you look at the three hubs that are actually taking up nearly 40 to 50% of the share of Islamic fintechs is Iran, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. And the key reason, right, for them not taking on a more aggressive approach is because they are very localized. The Islamic fintechs that are coming out of these three hubs are very domestic, are servicing a very domestic market. Either it could be because of language barriers, cultural barriers, but whether it is Iran, Saudi Arabia, or Indonesia, the fintechs are very much domestic. Versus if you look at Emirates, Malaysia, or even Qatar, they're very much geared for export market. So those fintechs are launching solutions that are being used globally, not just for domestic. And fintechs, the hubs themselves are promoting the development, right? And kind of mentoring and guiding those innovators in streamlining a business model within the Islamic fintech. Now, I want to point out to you that there is a heat map, the global opportunity heat map, right? The slide may be a little bit too cluttered, but I'll focus a little bit on this area. What are the most performing areas within the Islamic fintech versus what have been the areas that needs attention, right? So number one, of course, is the markets like Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia are performing in spaces like crowdfunding, lending products, Islamic lending products, and also wealth management products. So you see that those are the most green areas. And surprisingly, the most red areas, right, and I will call them that these are opportunities, right, are the areas like Sub-Sahara, where there is a lot of Islamic community, but because of maybe, the infrastructure in place, internet connectivity, community knowledge, and awareness, right, is totally in the red, that no fintech solutions are being launched there or being adopted there. So the red areas become basically opportunity. These are virgin markets for Islamic fintech innovators and entrepreneurs to actually explore on. I will leave you, right, in conclusion, right, with these two things, where the opportunities are coming from and where the gaps are, right? So the number one gap, I would say, right, today in Islamic fintech, the whole industry, is the injection of capital and the availability of capital to the fintech entrepreneurs. So this is being addressed by the fintech hubs, as well as a lot of the Islamic banks and government agencies that are setting up funds to finance performing fintechs that have gotten certain level of traction, maybe at the early stage. And also there are a lot of late stage now funds that are being created specifically for the Islamic fintechs. The second area, that really is glaring is the maturity and comprehensiveness of the regulatory framework. Okay, so countries like Bahrain, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia has a very comprehensive Islamic finance framework, and from there, the fintech regulations have been adopted. So today within Malaysia, in Emirates and Saudi Arabia, the licensing for crowdfunding, the licensing for lending solution, the licensing for blockchain-based tokenization system already exists. And fintechs are taking advantage of it and applying for those licenses. But in many of the other OIC countries, the framework either is not there, or even if it is there, it is very patchy or very, not up there. So a lot of the fintechs that want to develop do not know how to develop fully because they cannot integrate into the financial framework of the country. So that's why we are seeing a lot of innovators from different countries coming to Dubai, coming to Bahrain, coming to Malaysia, and setting up their venture out of these countries. And lastly, where the opportunities exist. So in the matrix, if you notice, right, the highest opportunities, right, are existing right now in the payment section, right, where halal payment is becoming a in thing. We have payment gateways, PayPal, there's so many different payment gateways in every country. But when you really look at, right, the Sharia compliance of those payment gateways and the way that they manage fund and the application of interest, riba and gharar is not acceptable to Islamic standards. So there are now quite a number of payment gateways coming out of the Emirates, of Malaysia, of Saudi Arabia that are actually addressing the issue of riba and gharar in payment gateways. So that's a very hot area that is developing. Another area is the lending products, right? So in lending products, of course, in the Islamic community, based on demographics, the number of lower income groups is quite massive. So having risk ratings, credit ratings availability is basically not there. So now fintechs are creating alternative rating matrices, and products, lending products are being launched based on alternative risk assessment matrix. So I have seen now solutions that are coming out based on social media matrices, also based on referral matrices, and there are so many different solutions. Now, these solutions are very good, in like African continent, in Asian continent, where there are a lot of, low income groups, or also, what is called in Malaysia, the B40 groups. And these users now, for the first time, are getting access to finance through these fintech platforms. And of course, lending based on their beliefs is a bonus. So I will leave you with that thought of the gaps and opportunities, right? And how this industry is growing. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions.
So if any attendees have any questions, please kindly send it over to us and we will get it answered by Mr. Hamid Rashid. Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you very much.
I hope to meet you in person sometime.
Definitely, inshallah.
Inshallah, sir. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.